Hello and welcome to Favorite Rugby on Ferreira Sports. Today, very interesting video about the top players from South Africa in the URC. Now, today we're going to be having a look at a very interesting metric that the URC introduced this season, and that is something called the URC top 100. And basically, it's a very different sort of way of measuring players. And today we're going to be looking at the top 100 list and which South Africans have made it so far. And we're then going to be tomorrow releasing a team of the top South African players throughout the tournament based on this metric. So what is it based on, basically? It is powered by a StatsMaster XP algorithm, which identifies the most valuable performers across the teams at any time during the season. Basically, what it does from the website is that it analyzes every match that players have appeared in during the last 12 months, including the URC, the EPCR, and internationals, and then StatMaster applies an expected points to each event in those games, like expected points added in the NFL and expected goals, for example, in football. Basically, the new stat measures the impact that each player has on his highest chance of scoring. It is based on the idea that rugby is a team game, that the player who slots the ball through the post for touchdown deserves plenty of credit, so do the 14 other players who helped create the opportunity. So, for example, I'm just reading from the website, by the way. It's not my interpretation, this is just from the metric. It says, for example, a player can gain points by doing things that increase his team's probability of making the next score, such as crashing past defenders, nailing a 50-22, earning a scrum penalty, or even winning a crucial turnover on his own try line. On the other hand, if he makes a costly error, he can lose points. The algorithm adjusts for lots of match factors, including the player's position, his location on the field, the phase type, the time on the clock, and the quality of his teammates and the opponents. This basically then allows the URC StatMaster to give the most accurate, data-driven estimates of how much players are currently contributing to their team. The rates can be broken into skill types, which means you can look at the best prop at scrummaging, the best flanker at defending, the best fire for goal kicking, or the best winger at carrying. It says all the ratings have been scaled so an average URC player scores 80, with the very best performance in the league reaching over 90. As the season progresses and players shuffle in and out of the URC top 100, StatMaster will be on hand to analyze the biggest movers and shakers. So, for example, this is when you see when you watch a URC game, for example, and you'll see all of a sudden like a scorecard will come up, and this is an example of a scorecard over here. I'll bring it up in just a moment. It sort of gives you like sort of ratings about on certain aspects of a player's game, and it's like defending, carrying, and stuff like that. So, for example, it looks a little bit like this. So this is, for example, one for Befeli, where it says overall rating is 88.3. Is carrying, defending, passing, kicking, goal kicking, all sort of coming into that. For example, Sia Khaleesi has one which will have lineouts involved, scrums, for example, which he doesn't earn points for. He's got passing in his and stuff like that. So they have different metrics depending on the different position they are in. So it's not an exact science, and unfortunately, it's quite complicated, and sometimes won't maybe necessarily reward players who are for like defensive work and stuff like that. So it's never going to be an exact science. It's always going to be pretty controversial. But at the end of the day, let's have a look and let's see what happens. It'll be interesting to see what the players within the top 100, and maybe that actually does give us an indication of players who are playing well, because we'll be able to sit there and go, yeah, actually that player has been pretty good and deserves to be there. Sometimes we'll be like, not so sure that player is that good or maybe better than somebody else, and then tomorrow we're going to go through it and we're going to create a team out of it, which I think is going to be quite controversial. So let's go. In 1 to 20, the highest ranked South African is ETZEBETH. He finds himself in 8th place. After that, the next best South African is actually HENDRIKSE, which is interesting. Obviously missed a lot of the season due to injury, but has had a pretty good last 12 months. Dwayne Mueller's in there, which is good to see from a South African perspective. And those are the only players that find themselves in the top 20 for South African players. We then go down to 23 to 40. Deon Fourie finds himself up there, which I'm not totally surprised at. It kind of shows you just the sort of value he brings to the Stormers and how important he is to that side. Sia Khaleesi over there as well, who's had a pretty good 12 months, playing some of the best rugby in his career. An interesting one, Jordan Hendrikse found himself at 30th. And maybe sort of shows you exactly how much the Lions missed him in terms of how important he is. Very good off the tee. Does know how to score tries, quite a few try assists as well. So he's been a massive loss for the Lions, and that sort of lays bare just how important he is, given the fact that he finds himself 30th out of 100 across the entire URC. We then got Brand Krobler, someone who a lot of people have been saying has been sort of quietly been getting better and better, and maybe a little bit underrated, and in terms of the season he's had. Franco Horn, which I can appreciate as well, incredibly important to the Lions. They're a different side when he plays compared to when he doesn't, and scored a lot of tries this season, scored a lot of points, but very, very important to the Lions' sort of attacking shape. Brock Harris is an interesting one to have there. Again, that sort of scrum penalties come into that and turnover and stuff like that. So he's actually the top South African prop in terms of expected points contribution, which is, I wouldn't have expected it, but there you go. You then got Grant Williams, Ryan Jansen from Rensburg, sitting in 41, 40, 42, 43. Quite a lot of Sharks players quite high up, which is interesting. You kind of expect it because it does include international performances, and so the Springbok players, probably have more games to be able to put themselves into that mix. But Stephen Kiptop sitting at 45. Again, I think probably reflects the fact that he is playing some of the best rugby he's ever played in his career. We then got Johan Kobler, who's the top-ranked hooker, and a lot of people will back that, saying that he's been very good, and a lot of people have been calling for a potential Springbok call-up based on this as well. Zach Berger coming in the 60th there, so sort of the last Johan Kobler being, rather Stephen Kiptop, the last South African within that top 50. We're now going to sort of the bottom 50, or the next 50 really. Jan Kobler and Zach Berger find themselves over here. Carl Steyn, South African born, wing away as well. Then 60 to 80, we have got Oxen Chen, who sits over there, as well as Junior Pokamelo, who's interesting because he hasn't played as much rugby as a lot of other players who don't find themselves this high up. Bismarck Duplessis as well, somebody who's, I don't think too many people would actually be able to tell you how he's playing. I think he's been pretty solid when he comes off the field, but obviously not quite the Bismarck of old, but still apparently contributing quite a lot to expected points. Probably a lot of that comes to do with the fact that he comes in late in the match, at the back of a very powerful scrum, and so in terms of expected points, quite high. Frans Malherbe, the very underrated Frans Malherbe there. Jacob Kriel, and a third Lions player on the list there. Neertli Bashir, and number 87 there. Kurt Lawrence, 94. Ernst van Rijn, 96. And Intutu Kongunu and Ruben van Heerden rounding up that top 100. So there's a lot of players there, which is interestingly not there. And, you think of Damien Willemse, for example, Marnie Liebach, Bongi Manambi. I think for me are some of the sort of the big names you kind of expect to see in Ulrich Loh, Evan Roos. Also, obviously hasn't played as much this season. But based on last season, you'd almost sort of expect him to be there, given the fact that he did win the URC Player of the Year. Ruan Nokia, somebody there, I think that a lot of people would expect to sort of see there. So it's a very interesting metric. And obviously, as I said, it's never going to be an exact science, but it's a very different way of looking at players' contributions. And again, tomorrow you're going to be doing a team based on this, and it'll be interesting to see what that team looks like and what everybody has to say. How many blocks will be involved in that? Maybe bolters, people that we maybe don't think about, but maybe we need to start taking a bit more notice. So let me know what you thought about the players that did make the top 100 down in the comments below. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven, and I'll chat to you soon.